I'd like to ask for our invocation to be led by Commissioner Tommy Belcher.
Lord, we've come to you in prayer tonight, wanting you to help us make the right decisions on the things that's coming before us. And thank you for your son, Jesus Christ, our Savior. Most of all, just thank you for everything. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. This time I'd like to ask Commissioner Beverly Atwood to lead us in our pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to ask our county clerk, Miss Rita, if you could call our roll call.
Beverly Atwood. Tommy Belcher.
Here.
Linda Bruce. Shane Burton.
Here.
Alan Carmen. Brian Crook. Will Dennis.
Here.
Jerry Ford.
Here.
Chris Gregory.
Here.
Jeff Gregory.
Here.
Bubba Gregory. Landon Gully.
Here.
Judy Kerr. David Nollner.
Here.
Leslie Overman. Mark Presley.
Here.
Amber Russell. Lonnie Taylor.
Here.
David Thomas. Steve Whitaker. 17 present, 3 absent.
If you haven't yet, if you could register on your electronic device for me, please. Thank you very much. So at this time, we're going to look for the approval of minutes. These minutes are of the May 27, 2025 commission meeting. They have been distributed. If there'll be no changes or amendments, I'll entertain a motion to approve. Jerry and Beverly. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Is there any announcements that need to come before the commission this evening? Anybody have any announcements? Thank you. So to set the agenda for this evening, budget ordinances will not be added to tonight's agenda. They'll be, what they're going to be is that they're to be discussed at the end of our active business. And I'd like to move budget discussion to item F, and which would move our notaries to item E, and then we'll entertain a motion to set the agenda. Commissioner Gully.
And was it just stated that budget ordinances were not going to be considered tonight?
Due to a couple of line item errors and some other rubs and adjustments that may or may not have been done, we would like to give the commission another week to review the proposed corrected version. Then we'll have a called meeting on Monday, the June 30th at 7 p.m. to go over the first reading. That gives everybody another week with the corrected packets. That was the request that was made this afternoon to us. So we are moving. So the question is, I would entertain a motion to set the agenda at this point. Jerry and Tommy, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Citizens' response to agenda items. Sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. I jumped ahead. So at this time, we'll vote to set the agenda. All in favor? Any opposed? Any electronic vote or voice vote? Electronic? Okay, this will go to electronic vote. If you register your votes, please.
Well, yes, to abstain, 3 no.
We have 12 yes, 2 abstain, and 3 no. Motion carried. At this time, we will recognize the citizens' response to agenda items. If you wish to speak to the commission, please sign in at the podium if you haven't done so already. You'll be called to address the commission at the proper time. If everybody has signed in already that would like to speak, or would like to ask Commissioner Crook if he'd be kind enough to pass the clipboard up here. Thank you very much. At this time, it's time for our county mayor report. Mayor McCall, you have the floor.
Thanks, sir. I'd like to report that the survey on the Ward School and arriving at the topo mat is probably a week away, which means that project should begin fairly quickly. We have begun on correcting the curbs downtown. We're going to kind of do them one at a time. The first one is at the corner of East Main and River Street there at Hartsville Taco. The 141 expansion is still on track. They are working on the pylons at the bridge, and that's certainly moving forward. One thing I'd like to say tonight, that there's a lot of misinformation that's being circulated on Facebook and otherwise, and I would caution the commissioners and members of the public to be careful about using the word fraud or corruption. In any case, if the accusation of corruption is made not based on facts, it really says more about the accuser and those who fall in the accuser than the accused. So just as a precaution, be very careful in using those words in your communication with each other unless you have the facts. That's my report.
Thank you very much. Moving on, committee and board reports. Budget and Finance met on June 16. Commissioner Gully, would you like to cover that for us?
Yes, Budget and Finance did meet June 16th. Primary pieces were there are quite a few budget amendments that you will see. I guess you call those cleanup items, end of the fiscal year, which will be June 30th, is coming our way. So there are quite a few cleanup items. All of these were able to be taken as one. None were discussed individually as needing to be pulled apart. So Budget and Finance recommends each of these with a favorable recommendation as well. And there was still trying to finish up, we'll come to that later, conversation about the fiscal year 26 budget.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Commissioner Gully? Okay, moving on. Codes and Zoning met on June 12, and I've asked Miss Rosalie if she could speak on that for us, please.
Thank you, sir. So Codes and Zoning met June 12th, and we had the discussion, the status of the zoning ordinance, combining that. We worked more on some of the definitions that were not gelling between the county and the city. We also worked on the PUD zoning that they were going to be bringing forward as well, finalizing that. And then also the burn permit, getting some more definition about what type of fee, if there is going to be a fee. And we had more information from Fire Chief Beeler on what that should look like. And then we also had some discussion about open shell housing and things of that nature, and how things have kind of changed with the state. And there are going to be more reports made at the next meeting on some of the permits involving those.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Mayan? Moving forward, first responders met on June 23rd. Amber Russell, can you please speak to that, please?
Sure. We met tonight at 6 o'clock. Pretty small meeting, pretty simple. The fire department, they're still questioning whether or not we'd be able to provide a addition for their vehicles. Rescue still has some maintenance needs, and they are working on a $10,000 grant. But other than that, we didn't have a EMS report or a law enforcement. So pretty short and sweet.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Commissioner Russell? Commissioner Gully?
Ms. Russell, addition for their vehicles. Fire Department. Can you elaborate?
Sure. For the fire hall, Chief Beeler said that now that they have all of their vehicles at the fire hall, that there are some that are left out in the weather now. So they requested, possibly getting a lean-to, if possible, for those vehicles, so they're not sitting outside.
Do we have any other questions? Okay, moving forward under other reports, on June 16th, Urban Services Committee met. Our chairman is not here, so what we did is we decided to voted to retain the officers the same as last year, which is Commissioner Gregory as the chairman, myself as co-chair, and then Commissioner Mark Presley as secretary. We also reviewed our budget and decided to leave everything as it is, status quo, moving into the 2026 budget year. Do we have any questions regarding urban services? Okay, moving forward into active business. We have several items to cover over this month. Appointments, you're going to find those in your handout that you received in the work session. This is the considerations for the library board and planning commission. For the library board, we have Judy Baker, reappointment for 3 years, and Kathy Robertson, reappointment for 3 years. The planning commission, we have David Thomas, a reappointment for a 4-year term, Amanda Carmen for a reappointment for a 4-year term, Heather Bay, a reappointment for a 4-year term, and Mitch Gregory, also for a reappointment for a 4-year term. Do I have a motion to approve the appointments as presented? We have a first by Chris and a second by Mr. Mullen. Thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Moving to resolutions. Resolution 2025-06-824, covering the per diem increase for our volunteer units, and you're going to find that on page 8 of your packet. This resolution has been recommended by the First Response and Services Committee along with Budget and Finance. This will raise our current per diem to our volunteer fire and rescue units to $50. Do we have any questions? Sorry. I'm sorry, Commissioner Kirk, I can't see your light. Sorry.
Well, what's wrong with it? Okay, I was gonna make a motion to approve.
Motion to, and a second. Ms. Atwood. Electronic vote will be required on this one. So if you could please register your votes on your device, please. I'm sorry, Commissioner Gregory. There you go.
Okay, thanks. Just wanted to question, since this was part of, I guess this was funded in the budget, that's not being presented tonight, whether this one ought to hold.
Okay. Sorry. Do we have any other questions regarding? We have a motion and a second. At this time, we'll take an electronic vote, please. The results are 15 yes, 2 no, motion carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to resolution 2025-07-825, which is a list of the county maintained roads, and you'll find that on page 9 of your packets. So the highway has submitted a current list of roads that they're maintained. This is just an annual, more than anything, more than just a housekeeping thing. If anybody sees anything they'd like to speak about or ask any questions regarding, otherwise, I'll take a motion from the commission on this one. Commissioner Gully.
Motion to approve.
Second by Chris. Will electronic vote on this one? Please register. We have 17 yes. So the motion carried. Thank you very much for that. The next one is Resolution 2025-08-826, and this is to continue budget operations. This is just a simple housekeeping thing also because we do not have a budget in place. We will not have one in place by June 30. This is a resolution to let us continue to operate the county under our 2025 budget. Got a motion from Chris, second by Amber. This is another electronic vote, please. So if you will register your response on your device, please. Is there any discussion I meant to ask? Pretty simple, moving forward.
Yeah.
17 yes, 0 no. Again, thank you very much. Motion carried. Ordinances, we have 5 rezonings to be presented this evening. 4 come with a favorable recommendation and 1 comes with an unfavorable. At this time, I'd like to ask Ms. Mayan to review these and field these questions, if she will. So the first reading is for ordinance 321-2025-08, which is rezoning an A1 to C1 on Highway 25 East, and you'll find that on page 24 of your packets.
I've also included some more information that was asked during the work session. You see on the front page of the packet that I handed out this evening, the exhibit that was given to us showing what the lot looks like, that it's 1.062 acres. And then I went ahead and took the Tennessee tax map and showed what all the different zoning was surrounding this property. So they're asking, there are a little section right there that is zoned A1 in that little corner. And then most of what's surrounding them is R2, which is multifamily zoning out in the county. There is a large section of A1 across the street, and then lower beyond that is M2, which is industrial. So there is also, I went ahead and colored the little section over there on Highway 25 that is zoned C1.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Rosalie? Yes, Commissioner Gully.
2 questions. First one, what all can be placed in a C1 zoning? Not what these individuals have said that they might be going to do. When we go to C1, it becomes C1 entirely. So what can be placed on a C1 area? And as well with that, when you mentioned the PUD zoning, does the PUD zoning that is being discussed in at this time currently in planning cover commercial?
Excellent question. So the PUD zoning, what we're looking at is having 2 different types of PUD zone. One is going to be strictly for residential use, and then the other PUD zone was going to be for a commercial mixed use. So that means residential as well as commercial. The question that you asked on what is allowed in a C1 zone, out in the county, C1 is any type of commercial, which also includes residential as well. There are hundreds of different, well, not hundreds, excuse me, that's a little far reaching there, but there are multiple uses that are allowed in a C1 piece of property. The only limiting factor is whether or not it has soils area out in the county. And this piece of property does not. So they are limited on what they are allowed to have.
Commissioner Gully.
I'm glad you mentioned soils in that. I believe there's a septic system that can be put for a little over $35,000 that can be put in. They build a septic system for those things. I did check on that a little bit. Those are done in Wilson County pretty heavily for areas that's rock and that they don't have sewer in. So when we say they can't do something here, it can be done at a cheap cost to make it have septic areas. I think $35,000 on a commercial use can be pretty cheap, to be honest with you. But there are septic systems that can be built relatively cheap. There's multiple routes. It doesn't have to be a conventional system that we consider here in Charleston County to be. When I say conventional, that is a septic system where it has field lines. It doesn't have to be a conventional system that we're so used to using. Trousdale County just hasn't seen any of these non-conventional at this time. So I want to mind each and every one of us here that we're not zoning for what it's saying it can use today. We're just zoning for C1. What can C1 be? You mentioned the R2 around it. I think that R2 that is all around this, which is heavy residential, was done actually in 1971. So that R2 has been there for a long time. I believe it's 1971 or 73 is when that R2 zoning.
This time I'd like to ask everybody to make sure you silence your phones, please. If you could continue, Commissioner Gully, please.
Not sure where I left off there, to be honest with you. But as what I will state back to reinstate is that the zoning of C1 is C1, no matter what at that point. So remind you of that. I don't see any C1 in this area, any commercial use property anywhere attached to this.
So at this time, I'm looking for anybody that'd like to give me a first on this one or a second on this one. I will tell you that this did come favorable from planning. So. Commissioner Gully.
I would rather not do it this way. I would put it in a motion to fail this piece, but I'd rather not do these negative. We have some trouble doing negative motions. So I'd be interested, I'd make that motion right now that I would say that this would not pass, but I'd rather it be made a different way and I'll vote no for it.
So at this time, I think we're just looking for this is a first reading. So I'm looking for a motion to approve on this and then we'll take it to electronic vote. And Chris Gregory, do we have a second on this one? But as stated, 3/21/2025 08 did come favorable from planning on June 9. We have a first. We don't have a second on this one. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Thank you. If you'll register on your electronic devices, please, and thank you. Oh, I thought we had with Ms. Rosalie. Would you like to open it for discussion? Reset. Okay, go ahead, Commissioner.
One piece to add, I would like that we consider this piece in the PUD zoning option that's coming our way in the future, so that to give you a brief idea of what the PUD zoning would be is instead of presenting a piece of property and saying, hey, I want to do this, and you come favorable because it's what was mentioned to us that planning said they're going to build a parking lot. I don't know what they're going to build, but planning thought they were going to build a parking lot in this area. I would rather us have a PUD zoning in place for commercial property before we go to something commercial, so that we know exactly what we're voting for in those pieces. That's my view on this one. That's the only reason I really am against this part, because we know not what is coming. We just know we're moving something to C1. I would rather have the PUD zoning in place before that comes to play.
Does anybody else have anything? Commissioner Gregory.
I would just point out that we don't have this PUD thing in place right now. We don't know when we're going to get it. And if we kill this, it's how long is it before it could be brought back under a different one? Is it a year or something like that?
Council's telling me 1 year. Those that have voted, yes, sir, Mr. Gully.
I will agree that it does put 1 year out. However, we also open up to commercial zoning for whatever they want to do at this point in time. That's a scary thought to me in an area that's residential.
Is there any further discussion? Okay, at this time, anybody that has voted, you can always revote. You can change your vote if you'd like to. So if you will record your votes on your device, please. Mhm.
6 yes, 2 abstain, 9 no.
Mr. Gully.
Honorable Biller, could you let us know what an abstain is in this case?
At this time, that is 11 no and 6 yes, so that would be a motion fail. Be reconsidered later. Moving forward, ordinance 322-2025-09, rezoning A1 to R1 on 141 North. You're going to find that on page 28 of your packets. I see right here that the planning commission has voted in the recommendation, they voted yes to recommend this before coming forward. So at this time, I'd like to ask Ms. Rosalie if she could speak to this one.
Thank you. In your new packet that was handed out this evening, I did give you a larger version of exactly what they're going to be rezoning. The 8.51 acres on one side of the property and 4.6 acres on the other side of the property. There is a legal description on each of those parcels. They are not asking to totally rezone the whole parcel of land, just those two sections. I've included also a zoning map for you where there has been a lot of rezoning on Highway 141 North to R1 on either end of Highway 141.
Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Mayan regarding this? Okay, as a first reading, would be looking for a motion and a second. A motion by Chris, or by Jeff, a second by Jerry. And again, if you will, please register your votes on your device, please. I'm sorry, is there any discussion to the matter? I don't want to skip that one. Okay, please register your votes, please. It was 17 yes and 0 no's, so motion passed. Thank you very much for that. Moving on, ordinance 323-2025-10, which is rezoning R1 to C2 on East McMurray Boulevard. You're going to find that on page 34 of your packets. Ms. Rosalie, if you could please speak to this, please.
Yes, this rezoning from R1 to C2 received an unfavorable recommendation from the Planning Commission due to the safety of the road being a very narrow road and the increased traffic that a C2 zoning, they felt that it would receive an unfavorable recommendation. We did have numerous individuals come forward and speak to that and ask for it not to be rezoned C2. I did include a zoning map for you showing that there are other C2 properties nearby, but there is that section surrounding this property that is R1.
Thank you. Is there any questions for Ms. Mayan? Mr. Gregory?
Not a question, just so that yes is yes and no is no, I will make a motion to approve this, but I will also note that I'm going to vote against my own motion. But I'll do that so that a yes vote is a yes and a no is a no.
Is there any other discussion or questions on this matter? Yes, Linda?
Yes, on the C2, can you kind of give a description like you did with the C1, what's allowed in C2s?
Ms. Mayan?
Yes, the C2 in the city limits allows just for commercial businesses, all that definition on what is allowed in a commercial district. Nothing residential is allowed. So you could have any type of office or business there.
Does that answer your questions? Okay, any other discussion? Yeah, we had a say. Who was our first and seconds on this? Chris? I thought I heard a second. I'm sorry. Do we have a second on this one? Mr. Gully,
I'll second with the same statement that my vote will be a no.
thank you. So as a reminder, a vote yes is a yes, and a no is yes is approving and no is not approving. Just for housekeeping's sake, because they get twisted sometimes. So please register on your devices, please.
Two abstain, 15 no.
So the results are 2 abstain and 15 no, so it does not pass. Thank you very much. Moving forward will be ordinance 324, 2025 11, which is rezoning R2 to R3 on Morrison Street. And you're going to find this on page 38 of your packets, please. Ms. Mayan, if you could please speak to this one.
Thank you. Yes, this is again the second time that you've seen this rezoning. It did come forward as the whole parcel asking to be rezoned. It did receive an unfavorable in planning. Now they're coming forward. They're wanting to, they were initially wanting to have us to have a PUD zone available for them to be able to utilize. Again, not really sure when this is going to be coming forward. So what they'd like to do is just rezone the top 4.7 acres along Morrison Street to an R3 rather than an R2. And last week during the work session, I was asked to provide some examples of the various R3 properties surrounding this. And I have included that in your packet. There are multiple R3s just within the small vicinity. And I do have a legal description of the 4.7 acres asking to be rezoned to R3.
Thank you. Is there any questions on this one? Mr. Crook?
I've just got a question about the utilities up there. How's the water and water pressure, or if we was to have a big fire, do we have enough water up there on top of that hill to take care of it?
Excellent question. I know when they brought this to planning, I asked them to speak with the water department about what the water service is going to be, and they are going to be having a new pump house installed up there on Morrison Street. It was already noted on the list that it was going to be updated, and it is on the agenda to be updated for the water department.
Okay, Linda?
I was just going to ask for description
Talking to your mic, please.
between the difference between the 2 and the 3 zoning, just so everybody will know.
Ms. Mayan?
An R3 zoning will allow for multifamily dwellings to be initiated on that piece of property. You're talking multiple townhomes, apartments, if they so desire. I know what you see on your exhibit is what they are saying that they're going to do, but again, as far as Mr. Gully had said as well, remember that once it's rezoned, they could come forward with anything that is allowed in an R3 zone, which is multifamily. R2 is for medium residential that allows more for duplexes. They have smaller setbacks than what would be for a single-family dwelling in an R1 zone. R3 zone has similar setbacks as an R2 zone, but again, it allows for multifamily dwellings.
Is there any other questions? Yes, David?
It's streets up there, Marshall Street, just a path. It's real narrow. I don't think it could take any of the traffic that would be for R3 zoning. I don't think it'd be enough move up there, and I'm like, water, I don't know how long that'll be for the water department to get around to doing that.
sorry.
Yes. Commissioner Whitaker?
I, just like Commissioner Norton, I drove up there last Friday, and it's congested enough now. They don't need any more traffic up there with all of those residential.
Commissioner Gully? I'm sorry, Commissioner Gregory, you were first. I'm sorry.
Thank you. I'll just will point out, this being in my district, I walked Morrison Street yesterday afternoon, knocked on every door and asked the people who were there how they felt about it. And the ones I talked to, almost to a person, were against it.
Thank you. Who's next? Mr. Gully, you're next.
Motion to approve.
Well, I have, who else is back there? Mark Presley. Commissioner Presley, would you like to speak?
Yes, I've had people state out against it that live on Church Street in Green Top due to the traffic on Church Street and water issues. Every time we get a heavy rain, creates issues in our area.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? So I'll entertain a motion. I have a motion from Landon, and I need a second if we'd like to go forward. Got a second from Amber? Okay, if you'll please record your votes on your devices, please. Four yes, one abstained, and 12 no. So this does not pass. Thank you very much. The last of these, we're moving into ordinance 325, 2025, 12, which is a rezoning of A1 to R1 Walnut Grove. You'll find that on page 42 of your packets. Ms. Myhan, if you could please speak to this.
Yes, you'll have in your packet as well a zoning map that shows the numerous R1 parcels of land that are on Walnut Grove. This parcel is 7 acres and they're wanting to rezone it to R1.
Okay. Are there any questions regarding this one? I'm sorry, Leslie?
Hi, I received some calls from neighbors who were opposed to this. I would appreciate a definition or a comparison of A1 to R1, please.
So A1 parcel of land can have residential structures on their parcel. Their setbacks are a lot more, 75 feet from the front of the property line, 40 feet from each side, and 60 feet from the rear of the property line. Whereas an R1 piece of property, the setbacks are 35 feet from the front, 15 feet from the side, and 20 feet from the rear. Now, that being said, the size of the parcel for an A1 piece of property, the smallest parcel that you can have without fire protection is 3 acres. With an R1 piece of property, the smallest parcel of land that you can have is 1 acre.
Any other questions? Mr. Gregory?
Questions, page 45 of the packet, the explanation from the planning commission says, reasons subdividing into 2 residential lots. If the lot is 7.36 acres, each of those lots would be more than 3 acres and would fit the A1 anyway. So did the applicant give it the reason why he felt a rezoning was necessary?
Ms. Myhan?
So with this parcel of land, you'll notice that it is rather long rather than wide. In order for them to be able to subdivide it into 2 parcels of land, with it being an A1 zone, they wouldn't be able to do that because of the width to depth ratio that is instituted in our subdivision regulations. So if they were to rezone it to R1, they'd be able to have 1 parcel of land be a smaller parcel, allowing for more of the road frontage to be able to meet being able to subdivide that.
Is there any further questions? Mr. Gregory, I'm sorry, Commissioner Gully.
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Brian Crew. Thank you very much for that. If you will please register your votes on your device, please. So the results are 12 yes and 5 no, so this does pass. Thank you very much. So we're going to move into budget amendments. Review all the budget amendments that we have here, which are, you're going to find them between pages 48 and 56 in your packets. These have been discussed at great length in budget and finance and were gone over last week in the work session. These are just mainly just housekeeping at the end of the year stuff. We could take them one by one, or we can approve them all in one motion if there's any discussion on this. I'm sorry, Commissioner Gregory.
Move to approve all.
Second by Mr. Whitaker. Is there any other discussion? Linda, do you have anything? Thank you. Okay, if we can, yes, we're ready. You'll record these on your device as well, please. The results are 17 yes and 0 no. Thank you very much for that. Next is our notary applications for approval. Ms. Crowder has presented us with a list of notaries, and here they are as follows. Dustin Delahaye with First National Bank, Teresa Creasy at TCAT, and Amber Russell with Trees to Treasures. Have a motion, we have a second? Jerry and Jeff. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Just as a reminder, we discussed this at the front of the meeting, fiscal year 2026 budget ordinances due to a couple of line item errors. We're going to give the commission another week to review the proposed budget as recommended by Budget and Finance Committee. I have scheduled a called meeting for Monday, June 30th at 7 p.m. at the courthouse here to hold the first reading of the appropriations of tax levies and general urban services. Are there any questions and concerns? Thank you. Moving on. I'm sorry, Chris, I'm sorry, I didn't see you, sir.
That's okay. I was just going to say, given that they came from Finance Committee with the 4-3 recommendation, it seemed like there were a lot of questions. If the rest of the commission is willing, I'd at least like to have some see what other folks' thoughts are. Where are some of the issues that others that we may seem to have with this before it comes up for a vote next week.
Do we have any further discussion? Yes, Mr. Gully.
I think a couple of things here. If I could have a couple minutes, I appreciate that. Budget and Finance, and I appreciate the members and their time and work done in this piece. Met, and if I looked it up, I think there's a little bit over 15 hours of time already on scheduled meetings in these budget and finance pieces. Members were mostly present every night. There were a couple of vacations because it went long this time. There was a lot to work with. Budget and Finance was sent a budget that originally could have cost 20+ cents of property tax to try to appropriate of increase. I think as a group, and I think each member here, we didn't agree on everything, but we came to a consensus on everything. The goal, one major goal, and as chair, I've tried to keep this goal as long as I've been chair. Last year was the first year we had raised property taxes. We got hit with two things: a elementary school roof that we had to take out a loan on, and we were hit with some loans that had been really nice for a while of 1.2s and 2% of interest rate on them, but they were floating loans, and the interest rate changed last year on us. We were able to make 5 cents work and pay for those interest costs and the elementary school roof project that the county took on. We've not asked for any other property tax increase other than that in my tenure here in this commission. We've made it work with growth money and those pieces. We were presented with a tough budget this year. There's an increase. Every one of us knows that it costs more today to go out here and live. We know that piece today. We sat down and we decided to go through a budget, and our first goal was, let's cut all raises to nothing, a status quo. And we went through the budget as a status quo. And we cut the budget as much as we could cut and clean that budget up to make it a very presentable budget to this commission. And I appreciate the work each and every one of those members did. There were a couple of members of the commission that came that were not members that made it almost every night. One I can remember, Miss Linda Bruce, was there every night looking and asking and questioning. And I appreciate that, wanting to know. She's asked a couple times tonight for zoning pieces. I appreciate that. I think it's important that we remember zoning also comes down to, is it in urban service or is it in the county? That's important to always keep in mind as well. But back to where I'm at, we strive to put forth, and in my position, I look at it this way. If I'm wrong, I apologize, but this is the way I look at it. My job is to do the best we can to present this commission with a budget that will work for this year, a balanced budget. Seems to be cell phone night when I talk. So a balanced budget. We took the time to diligently go through these numbers, and there were some cuts, some major cuts in areas of spending and motions and movements to try to get to a balanced budget. By balanced, I mean at that time with a status quo, no raise, and we were able to get to that point with cuts where there was no increase to the property tax needed for the budget at that point. And then we took on raises. That's how this process went. We went through the raises and we looked at needs. A couple numbers I would like to share, because there's a lot of information floating around out there that I want to be sure is clear to every member here. And I've got these numbers before me. These are factual numbers. I'm not saying nothing, some others weren't. I'm just saying these are factual numbers that I've gotten presented to me. Our sheriff's department is well behind adjacent counties. We see that. Actually, our sheriff's department even here is well behind a basic EMT. Our deputies make less than $55,000 a year. Each and every one of them make less than $55,000 a year on a 43-hour, 12-hour. They're a 12-hour employee. They get 43 hours per pay period. That's what that is before they go into overtime. On their regular pay, they make less than $55,000 a year. Our lowest paid basic EMT in the EMS department this year will make $66,000. Our sheriffs are behind. We took on a tough task and tried to keep our increases below 10 cents. Miss Amy, I think right up there will tell you that she'd rather it have been about 12 to balance this thing, but we gave it as best we could. And hopefully property taxes come in exactly like they should, above that 92%. We get our property tax and we didn't need the 12. We've presented it with 10 cents is what we've done. I can promise you this department has gone through, this committee has gone through this budget well. I'm not saying it's perfect. There are pieces in it that are amiss. By that I mean, there are always things that we could do a better job of cleaning up. But I can promise you that every member of that committee diligently looked through this piece, and it is not with any reward or gotchas that we ever look for. We're trying to do the best for our workforce as well as our constituents that we work for every day. I have that job and that goal. My job and goal as a chair of that committee has always been to strive to keep property taxes from not increasing. We did that without raises, and then we looked at raises. I think raises are needed. Our sheriff's department is well below. We see that in adjacent counties. I have some numbers that I think everyone has seen somewhere in the case of what our EMS department will make in FY '25 budget. Our lowest paid basic EMT will make $66,000, a little plus of that this year. Our deputies that are on the road will make most of them less than 50,000 this year, all of them less than 55 this year. We're trying to increase some numbers to make things right. I'm not saying it's perfect, and I never will. But I'll say that we did all we could to get this budget to this commission at a 10-cent property tax increase. And with that said, my last comment will be this. If you want to change anything, I don't think there's anything else we can cut and still present a balanced budget. Remember, we must balance our revenues at 92%, and we must balance our expenditures at 100%. I agree with you. We're not going to spend all 100% of that, but we have to balance it that way. That's required, is all I can say on that part. With that said, anything that we go above, any changes we make to those raises, know that every $36,000 will cost you another penny on that property tax increase. And that's where we stand today. We have presented you a budget that is a fair budget, in my opinion. I didn't say it was easy to do, but it's a fair budget in all departments. All department heads were okay with the cuts made during the time that we're cutting. All department heads were present and okay with the cuts that were made during those times. I didn't say they loved them, but they were okay with them. And every piece went forward in that manner. We've done all we can to put you a budget before you that only has 10 cents. Anything you want to do outside of that. And I've got some numbers on some employees. I don't call employee names to the table by any means, never will. Our sheriff's department has a couple of employees above $25,000. And when I say a couple, I'm sorry, $25 an hour. And when I say a couple, I mean a very few above $25 an hour. We had to increase their pay to get them closer to adjacent counties. We're not perfect. I would have rather it been $2.50 or $3 to get closer. We had to try to stay at a 10-cent number is what I felt like was best for all involved in this. I will mind you at this as well. We have a jail project looming. And that jail project right now is looming at roughly 80 cents of property tax to cover the $40 million jail that we're talking about, $35 to $40 million jail that we're discussing. Those are the numbers I have to look at when I come before this commission. That's what we've presented to you. I hope each and every one of you look at it diligently and understand that there's a committee that has been through it well. I appreciate every member and their time. We did not agree on everything, but we have agreed on a budget to send to you. Thank you.
Thank you. And at this time, normally I would have a pro tem that I could pass the gavel to so I could speak as just Lonnie from District 4, not the chair. But I can't do that this evening, so I'm just going to say a couple of things, and I don't want anybody to take it wrong. Everybody should be aware of how much hard work and effort is put in by that Budget and Finance Committee. They give up more time and more effort during this time every year than anybody could imagine unless you sat on that committee. They give up a lot of family time. And nobody in this county that's sitting in here, I should say nobody sitting on this commission, nobody wants to take any food out of the mouths and off the table of any county employee. That is not anybody's goal. As District 4 Lonnie, I hear from people all the time. I really do, at the gas station, at the Minute Mart, or wherever. People come up and ask me this stuff. I don't like to call people constituents. You know why? Because that sounds sterile. They're friends and neighbors. We have a tremendous community here. We really do. We've got an education system here. I am so proud of the matriculation rate that we have coming out of this school system. And our kids come up through here. I got a grandson in this school system, and I wouldn't want him to go anywhere else. I'm proud of it. But every cost increase that does come across this has to be paid for one way or another. It's painful. We don't want to price anybody that's on fixed income out of their homes. We don't want to do anything of that nature. This is a hard situation to figure out how do we pay for it. And most certainly nobody wants to see anybody slighted, especially our county employees. Never. These guys are protecting us. What would we do without them? I don't want to know. But I can tell you this much, just as Lonnie from District 4, not the chairman. I appreciate each and every one of our county employees, and I appreciate our Budget and Finance Committee and everybody that sits on this commission. Everybody here, we're not doing it for any kind of a publicity stunt. I can tell you that. Is it for the money? No, it's not for money, not at all. We're doing it because we care. We care about the people in our districts and everybody else in this county because, as I said earlier, we're friends and family. We're not constituents in my eyes. We're all friends and family, and we're in this one together. So I'll step off my soapbox at this time and go back to being chair. So at this time, is there any public that would like to, that has signed in, that would like to speak at this time? I think we have, is that Sheila? Is that Melissa Sheila? If you'd like to come up, please. No, that was under other business. Public.
Hi, good evening.
It is public comment. Yeah, we moved. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Melissa Shala. I'm here with my husband, Nick Shala. I live at 2525 Starlight Road. We live across the prison. On June 8th, by chance, we listened to the police scanner after we heard the sirens. We heard the very scary narrative of what was going on in there. That night, we realized that we didn't live in a safe place. Talking about killing hostages, I was afraid for us, I was afraid for the officers. It was a very scary situation. And we were just looking at our windows, seeing, are they gonna rush into the streets towards us? Anyhow, the COs are not sworn law enforcement, and they like the timely communication, and they lack the timely communication that could have put our household and neighbors in danger. We never received notifications, and we understand it's because there was not a breach. However, we live so close that any delay in the alerts could have serious consequences to us. Days later, I spoke to my neighbor, and we actually notified him, and he notified the other neighbors because they didn't know what was going on. They were sitting at their porch, and they are to our left, so they're even closer to the prison. And he was telling me about all the screams that were coming out of over there. I'm glad I didn't go outside because that would have been even more scary. On Tuesday, June 10th, I went to the meeting at the Chamber of Commerce, and I spoke to Senator Farrell, Sheriff Russell, also the mayor, and about our concerns. I also spoke to DA Lawson on Tuesday, and I support his call to transfer the prison to DOC and his outreach to legislators about this. I also spoke about 40 minutes with Representative Slater, and I was very happy to hear what he had to say about this. After listening to the police scanner in fear for all those hours, we assumed things had stabilized enough to go to sleep, only to later read that the head counts were still going on. How can we trust CoreCivic to be transparent when public safety is at stake? They notified the sheriff's office 2 hours after this happened. How many times has it happened before that we have no clue? Nobody's outside waiting for prisoners to come out. They can just escape. And have they escaped? How do we know? And the inmates also set a fire that night. It could have been a wildfire. This is not a stable or secure situation, and we're afraid and disappointed. We would like some assurances that we will be safe at home with 2,700 inmates in there. Like I said, I spoke to Representative Slater, and he mentioned the HB 1144 law, and I hope that the population will start diminishing there. And I'm filing FOIA's request to see what I can find out myself I don't know who else to go. I spoke to the commissioners in District 2. But I think that something needs to happen because we are not safe and we don't feel safe at home anymore. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, moving also forward on this, we have Tim Liebert signed in.
To hear my story and concerns. My name is Tim Leeper, and my son Kylan Leeper died in Trousdale Turner in October of 2023. He was stabbed the first week that he arrived because he was being robbed for his commissary and clothing that he had brought from another prison. My son is not the only child to die in this prison. There are hundreds that have died inside these prison walls just down the street from where we sit tonight. I have in some ways unwillingly become, in a sorts, a spokesperson for those people and those families because Core Civic does not give us answers. It does not give the family answers. When Trousdale entered into Core Civic contract, they weren't the first to circumvent state law. Whiteville Correctional in Hardeman County did it too. From my understanding, it was pitched to the county as a classification prison where inmates would be on their best behavior. It would be a low security prisons where inmates have light sentences and would be very little trouble, but the reality was much different. Trousdale Turner got troubled inmates from overcrowded facilities. Inmates began arriving before the prison was ready to accept them, and it in essence became a dumping ground for the Tennessee Department of Corrections. The prison has had a 3 to 4 times higher prison mortality rate than the national average for many years. Then you add in the rape, unchecked violence, rampant drugs being brought in by staff, extortion, and chronic understaffing, and you have a recipe for disaster. There is no meaningful rehabilitative opportunities as that is counterintuitive to a for-profit prison business model. Core Civic is no better with staff than they are with inmates. Ms. Pickett was a clinical psychologist that was stabbed in the eye, beaten, raped, sodomized before being urinated on back on August 30th, 2019. They classified this incident from Core Civic PR firm as a non-life-threatening injury. Yet they almost couldn't get her stabilized enough to get her onto a life flight helicopter. Not 6 months later, Miss Karen Ribbons, a friend of mine's ex-wife, was brutally attacked and was left with a brain bleed. Crushed eye socket, broken jaw, collapsed lung, in a coma, and hospitalized for 45 days. She is still unable to work 5.5 years later after having multiple reconstructive surgeries. Core Civic has still not settled the case, and she is now paying for medications out of her own pocket. Core Civic operates all of its facilities the same way. They understaff them, and they make as much money as possible, no matter the death rate or collateral damage. Desensitized to death and human suffering, not to mention the ongoing active federal DOJ investigation. But we continue to renew contracts. I understand that I talked to some of you tonight. There's a jail we've got to build, and those funds have to come from somewhere. 100% understand that. You nearly had a catastrophic situation with a riot that could have seen dozens of inmates flood into your backyards, but fortunately, the local sheriff departments, state troopers here and around the county, it was contained. And we can say what we want about the prison contract renewal, but you can never again say that you didn't know what transpired in this prison. I would just simply like to ask that before we continue to renew these contracts, we take into consideration the potential damage that it brings to the community. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. Okay. So at this time, does anybody else have anything in the commission? Okay, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. And a motion from Landon, a second from Jerry. All in favor? Thank you. Have a good evening.